I'm gonna start.
She's safe, but was it really as safe
Good morning and welcome. I'm Steve Rohde. I'm with the Memorial Day Planning Committee. I'm also a member of the Sons of the American Legion Squadron 36 here in West Bend and the American Legion Riders District 2. Thank you for attending the 2021 West Bend and Washington County Memorial Day Parade and Service. I ask you would please silence your cell phones now. Thank you to those who participated in our parade. Thank you to the volunteers for placing U.S. flags on our streets. Thank you to the volunteers who placed U.S. flags on the veterans' graves. Thank you to the volunteers who planted the flowers here on Veterans Square. Thank you to my fellow Memorial Day Planning Committee members, both past and present. Thank you to all the veterans and active military who are here today. Please stand and be recognized because you answered the call and you were willing to place yourselves in harm's way. Please rise. Thank you. And never forget the many POWs and MIAs that are still unaccounted for. Thank you to our Blue Star families. A very special thank you to our Gold Star families. Thank you to our speakers and all who stand on the square here today. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a member of the Sons of the American Legion and the Legion Riders. I am not a veteran. But like all of you, I get it. You know why we're here today. We are here to honor and thank the brave men and women who gave their all to secure our freedoms. Join me in a moment of silence to honor the fallen. And now, it is my privilege to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Scott Mindel. Scott is an educator at West Bend East High School. He's a recipient of the Rolfs Foundation Award, and he too is a member of the Sons of the American Legion. Mr. Mindel.
Good morning. It is my privilege and honor to help guide us through today's program, which is a time-honored tradition here in West Bend. I also have the honor of filling in for longtime Master of Ceremonies and World War II veteran, Alan Keycaver. It's the hope of the Memorial Day Committee that you will enjoy this program, put together for your enjoyment, as well as your personal reflection about what Memorial Day really means. And now, without further ado, on with the program. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mike Coogler. He will deliver a tribute to the flag of the United States.
Thank you, Scott. Please welcome our flag bearer today, Corporal Jay Anderson. Ladies and gentlemen, as we honor the brave men and women of our armed forces who are putting themselves in harm's way for our benefit today, and particularly for those who have laid the ultimate sacrifice upon the altar of freedom, let us be mindful that our flag does not wave because of the wind that blows it. Old Glory flies because every soldier's last breath blows by it. Accordingly, I propose a tribute to the greatest flag to ever fly over land or sea. Here's to the red of it. There's not a thread of it, no, nor a shred of it in all the spread of it from foot to head. But heroes bled for it, faced steel and lead for it, precious blood shed for it, bathing it red. Here's to the white of it. Thrilled by the sight of it, who knows the right of it but feels the might of it through day and night. Womanhood's care for it made manhood dare for it. Purity's prayer for it keeps it so white. Here's to the blue of it. Beauteous view of it, heavenly hue of it, star-spangled dew of it, constant and true. Diadems gleam for it, states stand supreme for it, liberty's beam for it brightens the blue. Here's to the whole of it, stars, stripes, and pole of it, body and soul of it, oh, and the roll of it, sun shining through, hearts in accord for it, swear by the sword for it, thanking the Lord for it, red, white, and blue. And now, will all those who are able to do so please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Norbert Carter. Norb is a U.S. Army Korean War veteran serving with the 2nd Division Combat Engineers. He has served as the commander of the Korean War Veterans Post 111. He will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Please remain standing and join in the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner, led by Joel Hausman, U.S. Army veteran, accompanied by the River City Irregulars.
Thank you all for being here today. Now, please join in singing our national anthem if you could. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Pastor Luke Love of First Baptist Church here in West Bend, who will now deliver our opening prayer.
Let us pray. Father, Creator God, in our pledge we just used the phrase under God, and so it is fitting for us now to pray to you and to thank you. What you allow us to do today, and the individuals, they gave their life for what we get to do today. Your word tells us and illustrates that there is great value in remembering. Your people were called to set up memorials so they would not forget and the next generation would know God's great works of deliverance. And so what we do today is right and good. I pray we would remember the sacrifice of life given by so many for the freedom that we can enjoy and celebrate today. I pray we would not forget the cost, the loss. I pray we would listen to the memories and learn from the lessons from it. I pray we would not waste their sacrifice in the life that we enjoy now. We thank you ultimately, as you are the one that gives us freedom and gives us your Son, Jesus Christ. And so in Jesus Christ's name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Love. It's now my pleasure to introduce John Kleinmoss. John is a U.S. Army Vietnam War veteran and past post commander of VFW Post 1393 here in West Bend. John will read General Logan's Order Number 11 of May 5th, 1868.
You may be seated. I know many of you were excited when we found out that we could have a parade and a service today. I know I was excited. Recently, somebody came up to me and says, "Are we doing a parade this year?" I said, "Absolutely." "All right. Are you doing the same program that you do year after year?" I said, "Yes, we are." "Aren't you ever going to change it up?" No. One good reason to help us to remember. I'd like to take credit for that, but I had nothing to do with it. The reason we do the same thing, the reason we read the Gettysburg Address, Flanders Field, Preamble to the Constitution, is so that generations know what this day really means. It's not about us as veterans. It's about those that gave their lives so that we can be here. It's to remember. Please forgive me if I can't get through the general orders. I've done it so many years, I've got it memorized, but it still brings a tear to my eye. I want you to especially listen to this one paragraph, and I'll say it again. If other eyes grow dull, and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remain in us. And that's why we're doing this today. As long as we can tell future generations, as long as we can tell those here today, this is a day of remembrance. General Orders number 11. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers and otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet, churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect and circumstances may permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound us together, the soldiers, sailors, Marines, who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead, who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foe? Their soldier lives where the reveille of freedom to the race in chains, and their death a tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of a nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot trod rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of neglect or ravage of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of freedom and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in this solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the appointed time, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us rise above them to our dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in his solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, their soldiers and sailors, widows and orphans. It is the purpose of this Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that will be kept from year to year while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend it friendly aid in bringing it to a notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. General John Logan.
Next, we will hear from Mason Falk. Mason is a freshman at West Bend West High School, and he will read to us the Preamble to the United States Constitution.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Next up is Madison Gieron. Madison is a junior at West Bend West High School. She will read to us the Gettysburg Address.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent, a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Next up is Michaela Wettig. Michaela is also a junior at West Bend West High School, and she will read it to us, the World War I poem, In Flanders Fields.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break free with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Next, we will have a musical selection sung once again by Joel Hausman. He will sing God Bless the USA.
This song is for all veterans across this great land that are no longer with us today, but particularly for those that paid the ultimate price. We all have our disagreements and opinions in life, particularly in politics. But if there's one thing I'm certain we can all agree on, is that this is and was and will always be the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. If tomorrow all the things were gone that I worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my God above to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, well, there's a pride in every American's heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Can never go wrong with Joel. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Judge Andrew T. Gonering. Judge Gonering is a West Bend native and a graduate of West Bend High School. He received his undergraduate degree from St. Norbert College and his Juris Doctor degree from the University of Wisconsin Law School in 1977. He was elected to the Washington County Circuit Court in 2000 and re-elected in 2006, 2012, and 2018. During his 20-plus years in the private practice of law before taking the bench, Judge Gonering was active in many different civic organizations and has served as president of the West Bend School Board, chairman of the City of West Bend Police and Fire Commission, president of the Noon Kiwanis Club, and president of the Kettle Moraine YMCA. His continued involvement in various nonprofit organizations while on the bench, and has been active in community theater for over 40 years. His ties to West Bend and Washington County have always generated an interest in local history. After 20 years on the bench, Judge Gonering retired in March 2020. He's here to deliver our Memorial Day address. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Andrew T. Gonering.
Thank you, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, veterans, Gold Star families, and honored guests, good morning. Let me start by saying that it is truly an honor and a privilege to be asked to speak here today, and certainly not the kind of invitation that anyone familiar with this annual program would ever turn down. As a native West Bender, born and raised, I've attended this program on countless occasions over my lifetime, and I have always considered this Memorial Day program to be one of our city's finest traditions. I have many fond memories of this annual program going back to my childhood, back when the gathering space was around the corner on Fifth Avenue before this beautiful plaza was constructed, as I'm sure many of you recall. I remember attending this program as a youngster and being handed my own personal small American flag, as was the custom back then, a tradition continued during the parade by the West Bend Police Department, and thinking what a thrill it would be to be part of that ceremony, which has changed very little, as John indicated, since then, by waving that flag. I remember participating in this program in high school as a member of the West Bend High School Choir, and later as an adult on several occasions as part of the Peter Eyre Ensemble. I recall watching my wife participate in this program as a member of the River City Irregulars. And I recall both my youngest sister, Meg, as a high school student reciting In Flanders Fields, and later in life, in that same capacity, my oldest son, Ben, reciting the Preamble. And I also remember my father, Mike Gonering, marching every single year in the parade preceding these ceremonies with his fellow veterans, including Alan Kiekefer. As a member of the Army Air Corps during the Second World War, well into his 80s until he was physically unable to do so. Always dressed in a coat and tie to reflect the solemnity of the occasion, always wearing his Legion cap. And for years, I proudly displayed in my chambers in the courtroom a photo of my dad so attired standing alongside the World War II memorial behind me, which I took at the conclusion of one of these ceremonies. These are some of the memories I have of this fine West Bend tradition held annually on the same courthouse square, a square dedicated to the public by the founding fathers of this city in 1846. We in West Bend are fortunate to have many fine annual traditions in our city. Our annual Christmas parade, our 4th of July festivities, and various other gatherings sponsored both by the city and other organizations. But what makes this tradition different than any other of our many traditions is the reason we gather here in this same locale every year. And that is to both honor and remember those members of our community who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this nation. Despite my fond memories, it is not the parade, the marching, the bands, the flags, the recitations, or the singing. It is the recognition that the sacrifice made by those we honor today must never be forgotten, no matter what the circumstances may be. This is the day that we as Americans pay our respects to those who gave their lives, asking only one thing in return, that they be remembered. We have heard the history of this, the most solemn of our holidays, at past programs, but I think it bears some repeating because it puts in context how we arrive here today. Compared to some older civilizations, honoring those who have fallen in defense of their country is a relatively new tradition in this country, really originating after the Civil War ended in 1865. The bodies of the over 600 Americans killed in that conflict, more than any other conflict in our nation's history, could be found in nearly every churchyard and every city, town, and hamlet throughout the states then making up our union. By the end of the 1860s, citizens of those small towns and cities began to decorate the graves of those who had fallen in that war with flowers and ribbons. As we heard in John's fine recitation of the General Order, what we now call Memorial Day really got its start when General John A. Logan, the head of the Union Veterans Association, also referred to as the Grand Army of the Republic, had the idea of coordinating these many individual ceremonies into a national holiday by issuing a decree calling for a nationwide Day of Remembrance to be held on May 30th, 1868, for the purposes of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of the fallen Civil War comrades, a day he referred to as Decoration Day, as we heard in the recitation of the General Order. General Logan's May 30th holiday continued to grow throughout the end of that century and was eventually renamed Memorial Day by the start of the 1900s. While some southern states refused to acknowledge a holiday that honored Union dead, by the end of the First World War, with its 130,000 casualties from both sides of the Mason-Dixon line, the country was firmly bonded in recognizing May 30th, Memorial Day, as a day to honor all those killed in all battles going back to the Revolutionary War. Communities such as ours continued to honor the tradition started by General Logan every May 30th until 1968, when Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which not only formally made Memorial Day a national holiday, but decreed that it be celebrated on the fourth Monday of the month of May, commencing in 1971. Here in West Bend, Decoration Day was first celebrated on May 29th, 1880, May 30th on that year having fallen on a Sunday. While we may have been behind other Washington County communities in celebrating Decoration Day, in 1880, local veterans finally heeded General Logan's call and joined together in decorating the graves of their fellow Civil War brethren killed in that war. I mentioned earlier, as did John, that this ceremony has changed a little over the years. I know from my research that the same basic format goes back to the 1930s, including having high school students recite both In Flanders Fields and the Gettysburg Address, just as Madison and Michaela did so well today. We may not be as familiar with In Flanders Fields as the Gettysburg Address. That poem was written by a Canadian Army doctor, Lieutenant Colonel John McCree, after a particularly devastating battle in Belgium in 1915 during the First World War, after which he was called upon to lead funeral services for a close fallen friend in the absence of the company chaplain. Of significance to us is the reference to the poppies, which give rise to those red artificial remembrance poppies that we are familiar with. On the other hand, we are all certainly familiar with the Gettysburg Address delivered by President Lincoln on November 19, 1863, at the dedication of the Gettysburg Soldier Cemetery, some 4.5 short months after that famous Union victory, which claimed over 23,000 casualties on both sides of the battle. It is without doubt the single most famous American speech in American history. Despite the fact that the Civil War was far from over, and despite the fact that the small-town practice of remembering those who fell during that war by decorating their graves had not yet begun, it was as though Lincoln recognized what our obligation to those who gave their lives in defense of this country should be then, as well as into the future. In the span of 2 short minutes, and in less than 275 words, President Lincoln, I believe, said more about the purpose of the future day of remembrance that we now call Memorial Day than could be said in 30 times that amount. For example, Lincoln recognized that it is altogether fitting and proper that we today, as they did at that Gettysburg dedication, gather together to honor those who gave their lives that this nation might live. But at the same time, as Lincoln noted, nothing we do or say today could ever compare to the deeds those honored dead made in making the ultimate sacrifice. As Lincoln noted then, and is true today, the world will little note nor long remember what is said here today. But what is truly important is that we never forget their sacrifice, and that we honor their memory by dedicating ourselves to the ideals they fought and died for. Because if we don't so dedicate ourselves, these honored dead shall have died in vain. As President Lincoln noted, it is a 2-step process. not just remembering the fallen, but holding true to the principles of our nation for which they died. Some 3 years before he visited our city, President Ronald Reagan, in his 1984 Memorial Day address, credited President John Kennedy with making a very similar statement a few months before President Kennedy was assassinated, when he said, "A nation reveals itself not only by the people it produces, but by those it remembers," which President Reagan interpreted as meaning that we, as citizens of this great country, need to reflect the ideals that our honored dead fought and died for by putting those ideals into practice in our daily lives. Again, not just remembering those heroes, but remembering what they fought and died for. Now, as a youngster and even as an adolescent attending these ceremonies, it was difficult, if not impossible, for me to relate to that underlying purpose of this annual ceremony. Certainly, children of my generation knew both of World War II and the Korean War. Many, if not most of us, had fathers and in some cases mothers who had served during those conflicts. We had seen the movies, both with and without John Wayne. We had studied certain aspects of those wars in school. We had heard the stories, and on occasion, some of us would even don parts of our parents' service uniforms while we playfully enacted those conflicts, as strange as that may now seem. We all knew neighbors and relatives who had fought in those wars. In our neighborhood, in addition to the many men and fathers who served during World War II, we had at the end of our block our neighbor, Mr. Klaus, who served during World War I and would on occasion wear his doughboy uniform. We had our next door neighbor, Vern, who served during the Korean War. And we even had a neighbor and mother of 7 who served as an officer in the Waves, the Women's Naval Reserve Unit during the Second World War. But still, as a younger person, it was hard to relate to that period of time and the sacrifices that were made both by those who served and particularly those who died. After all, to someone much younger, that was something that occurred in ancient times, a whole 10 to 20 years or so ago. A time period, as we all know now, was simply a blink of an eye to our parents' generation, much as that time period is to us today. And certainly while we could understand what it means to have been killed in battle, it was difficult to understand the meaning of that sacrifice by someone we personally never knew. As a result, for me in my younger years, these Memorial Day services were more about the parades, the bands, the recitations, and the singing than the underlying purpose of this annual tradition. Honoring the memory of those who died in defense of this country and recommitting ourselves to the ideals they died for. But certain events fundamentally changed my understanding of what these Memorial Day services really stand for. A certain period of time caused me to appreciate the ultimate sacrifice made by those we honor here each year. I have had the privilege of visiting both the Civil War battlefield at Gettysburg and some years later the beaches of Normandy, along with the Normandy American Cemetery at Coogler. It is nearly impossible to stand on the fields of Gettysburg or the sands of Omaha Beach or among the thousands of monuments in that cemetery and not have a humbling appreciation for what transpired there and the sacrifices made there. But the single most significant event that years before caused me and much of my generation to have a much clearer understanding of the meaning of Memorial Day was the war in Vietnam. Unlike our parents' war, that war was not ancient history. It was happening in current time, and it wasn't the movies. It was broadcast nearly live into our homes every evening on the nightly news. And it did not involve the ultimate sacrifices by strangers we never knew. Those fighting, many of whom are present today, and particularly those dying in that war, were members of our community, members of my generation, who walked the same streets I did and who attended the same high school I was attending, and more importantly, who I knew. These local heroes have been mentioned in past Memorial Day services here. Men like Sergeant Glenn Dean, a 1966 graduate of West Bend High School, 4 years my senior, and a popular and terrific cornet player with the high school band, killed in action on August 27, 1968. And PFC Thomas Crook, who I remember well, 3 years my senior, a 1967 graduate of West Bend High School, killed in action on February 23, 1969. And all the others referenced by Scott Mindel in his daily Facebook posts preceding this holiday. I have to believe that it is nearly impossible for someone of my generation not to have a better understanding of the meaning of Memorial Day, having lived through those times. Just as with our parents' generation, these were individuals dying in the service of their country who were very much a part of the community that honors them today. But I do have a concern. The Vietnam War is now 2 generations behind us. And although subsequent conflicts like Iraq and Afghanistan have also taken the lives of members of our community, as reflected by the Gold Star families we honor at these services, those wars will soon be ancient history to younger generations, if they are not already. One of my favorite songwriters, who was also a veteran of the U.S. Army, once wrote, "I know I never will forget what I never did know." In other words, one first has to be aware of something in order to remember it. My concern is this: how do we assure that younger generations will relate to the underlying purpose of this long-standing community tradition and not just look at Memorial Day as the 3rd day of a 3-day weekend kicking off summer? Without another major military conflict, which God willing we will not face again, how do we assure that future generations will continue to honor those who gave their lives that this nation might live? I wish I had the answer. Maybe we start by making sure that our children and our children's children at least honor this day by attending these services for the parade, the bands, the marching, and the singing, if nothing else, in the hope that someday they will ultimately make the connection as to the true reason we gather here each year. I do truly believe, however, that it is incumbent upon all of us to do our very best to attempt to assure that our children and our children's children continue to both remember those who gave their lives in defense of this country and to recommit themselves to the ideals those heroes died defending. That, in the words of Lincoln, is the great task remaining before us as we leave here today. Because if we as a nation fail to continue to recognize this day for what it truly represents, then we run the unforgivable risk that these honored dead shall have died in vain. I again want to thank the committee for asking me to speak here today. It is a true honor. Thanks to all of you for attending. God bless our Gold Star families. God bless all the veterans in attendance here today. You all have my utmost respect. God bless the fallen heroes we honor today. And God bless these United States. Thank you.
Officially authorized by President Wilson in 1918, the Gold Star Service Banner, or flag, is displayed by family members in recognition of someone in their family who has died during military operations. Today, and especially today, the nation recognizes the sacrifice that all Gold Star family members have made when a father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, or other loved one dies in the service to this nation. It is now my humble honor, as I would hope you would join, to recognize those Gold Star families in attendance today. The families of Lance Corporal Travis M. Wicklotz and Sergeant Nicholas Braun. As another Gold Star family recently reminded me, every day is Memorial Day for them. Next, we will have a placing of the memorial wreaths by representatives of the Washington County Veterans, Sons of the American Legion, and the American Legion Riders. Next will be the Battle Hymn of the Republic, played by the River City Irregulars. And now, once again, Pastor Love, who will deliver the benediction for today's program.
And so, God, we pray now, and we thank you for the time set aside to remember the sacrifices, to say thank you and celebrate those who have served this country. As we go from here, Father, we pray that we do what this day has called us to do, and that is to remember. We have sung it in song, going back, listening to speeches. We have remembered this phrase of, God, would you bless America? Father, I pray just that. Would you bless this country? Would you bless it not for our selfish ease? Would you bless it not just so we can have comfort? Would you bless this nation and continuing honoring of the sacrifices that have been given? Would you bless this nation because of the truths and the principles of your creation that this country was built upon, was founded upon? The principles of freedom. Father, would you bless this nation for what is true and right, and how we would have the opportunity to be a blessing. Would you bless this nation for your glory? In Jesus' name I pray these things. Amen.
Today is the day set aside for honoring those men and women who died while serving in the U.S. military. We are obligated to spend some time today remembering those who lost their lives and therefore could not come home, as well as the families and the friends they left behind. There really are not proper words, but all of us should live in gratitude each and every day for the precious gift that these soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen have given to us. Once again, thank you all for attending. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States. Once again, the River City Irregulars.
Thank you all for attending. Never forget,